appears like the tension has subsided a little bit out in Nevada, but there are so many little sub-stories to this main story about the ranchers out there on the Bundy Ranch. Let's take another closer look here. It's not exactly clear at this point what federal authorities had to do to get things to settle down over the weekend, but the BLM has now returned 300 head of Bundy's cattle to the open range, and the threat of a potential clash with hundreds of Bundy supporters has also subsided. Americans from all across the country rushed to Bundy's defense after a YouTube video of Bundy clashing with federal officials went viral. Bundy's dispute with the government began around 1993 when the Bureau of Land Management changed grazing to protect an endangered desert tortoise species. Well, joining us right now to talk about this is entertainer and fellow rancher and Nevada resident Waddy Mitchell. Waddy is known as an American cowboy poet with lots of insight on these particular cases of rights for land. It's good to have you with us, Mr. Mitchell.
Well, thank you very much. Good to be with you.
So, Waddy, you are known as one who can put feelings into words, and representing Arizona as I did on Capitol Hill for 12 years, it was very difficult to explain to people from suburban and metropolitan areas the whole nature of land in the West and the reason why cattle ranchers have to have grazing permits. Now, I don't know if you've set this to verse yet, Waddy, but can you just explain what a rancher goes through in a state like Nevada where so much of the land is under federal control?
Well, we're in a state that's about 87–88% owned by the federal government. I believe that the early fathers said in the Constitution that the federal government should own no land other than for installations or army or things like that, post office, things that they were involved with. To have the federal government own 87% of the land mass in the state kind of makes them almost monarchs, doesn't it? If I could give you just a little analogy, I hire a chore boy for the ranch here whose duties are to take care of the milk cows, gather the eggs and feed the chickens, feed the pigs, take care of the orphan calves, bottle feed them. And in a month, I go out there and my milk cows have mastitis. The chickens have quit laying eggs. My pigs are getting skinny, and the bummer calves are dying. I'm not going to give that guy more responsibility. But if this guy is handed responsibility from, say, a family member that gives him these rights, we can't fire him. In fact, he can come into our house now and get hold of our checkbook and take the money from us, take our furniture away from us. And this is really what we're up against here with these federal agents. Now, we're talking federal agents. Think about this. We are talking land managers. They're supposed to be land managers. When did we decide to arm and have taser guns on land managers that they're now calling federal agents? I think they called them federal agents at Waco. I think they called them federal agents during the McCarthy era. I think that they called them federal agents during the Waco crisis. These same federal agents are very willing to tase people, strong-arm them, and steal their personal property for their own gains, which has been set up and not really for the public good.
Now, Waddy, in this situation, you have something that I don't know if you've had personal interaction with some of these folks, but I remember one of my constituents telling me that, I'm not sure if the official was from the Forest Service or BLM, but he came to their ranch one day and said, "Hey, you guys got to understand, as far as you're concerned, I'm God. In other words, I make the decisions about your livelihood." Has it deteriorated to that kind of relationship for you with the federal government?
I've been trying to get a road put across federal ground that I've been accessing for years and years to another piece of privately owned ground that I own. because we had used that road and our access to it for so many years, I thought nothing about it until my neighbors started saying, you know, you better go get that all down on paper because they can stop you from using that road. And that's exactly what they have. I didn't believe the government would do things like that, but they have shut down a road, don't let me access my own property.
So when you have this kind of checkerboarding, and you pointed out what happens with the roads, what's the conclusion you draw, not only from Clive and Bundy's situation, but from your situation and so many other ranchers? Is the government, in terms of the bureaucracy, intent on driving cattle ranching off of Western lands completely?
Well, I can tell you in 1976 to today's date, there's about a third of the head of cattle that are being raised in the state of Nevada. Down there in the Bundy's country, there was 50-plus ranchers down there in about 1976, and this is when the Bureau of Land Management really started getting aggressive. Right now, there are 3 ranches down there. American people have to realize that this is the food source that is feeding them. Now, to make up that, we're bringing in cattle from Australia, we're bringing in cattle from South America with a lot less of the stringent guideposts and things that we've put in place to make sure that the food we put on the table is safe. So if we want to ship out everything and to where if something happens, and believe me, in the world things happen, we want to be dependent on other countries to feed ourselves, not a good idea.
Waddy Mitchell, we're going to leave it right there. We appreciate your perspective as a rancher and as a cowboy poet. Perhaps given the recent strife, you may be moved to compose a poem concerning what went on at the Bundy Ranch. But again, we thank you for your time and your insights as you check in from your ranch today, also in Nevada.
It will be interesting to see, too, if this sparks more of these protests, because you've seen what happens. You know, people showed up en masse to support this rancher. I would imagine it's going to happen again, and it will be something that the BLM is going to have to address sooner or later in a more substantive way.
Absolutely. One way to do it, social media. You can use social media. Tweet us at Newsmax TV, #AmericasForum.